Back again with you, another one. Today we've got a special guest, something different, something which I've been trying to implement for quite some time. Bring on like-minded fans, come on the show so we can have a debate. So today's guest, we've got from Kenya, Caleb Mambo. Please introduce yourself.
Hi guys, glad to be on. Thanks a lot for bringing me on. My name is Caleb. I'm from Kenya, an engineer by profession, an Arsenal fan. Excuse me, for the last 20 or so years. Seen the highs, had the lows, and here we are again with another roller coaster of a season.
Okay. Before we start, I'd like to sort of say rest in peace to a massive footballing legend in Diego Maradona. As you've mentioned, you've been around for quite some time. So I wasn't privileged enough to see the great Maradona because I was born in the sort of 90s, but maybe you were privileged enough to see the great Argentine in action.
I'm not that old really, but my footballing knowledge goes all the way back. I've had interest in football and locally as well, engaging in the game as a player and later as a coach. But not professionally, of course. But it's really sad that we lost him. And just seeing Pele's tweet later that was hopefully they can play football in the sky sometime soon. And it's really sad considering the condition that he has had lately. But we pray that he rests in peace. And maybe as well, just to add, for the Arsenal family as well, we lost a fan today. AVD is famous on AFTV. So
AVD,
as well.
Rest in peace as well. Yeah. Sad times. 2020 has been a very tough year. But in terms of how we started this, so this whole conversation kicked off on Twitter, where you were, I'd say, quite pro Arteta, and I was quite critical of him. So we're going back and forth until I said, you know what, mate, let's stop this conversation. Let's just come onto my show. Let's have it out. And it was you and another gentleman. Thankfully, you had the courage to say, let's do it. So I'm very thankful you're here. And so let's start with the beginning question. This whole buzzword they like to use, trust in the process. Do you trust the process? And if so, why do you trust the process?
So, as I said, I support Arsenal through quite about 20, close to 25 years. Very late, just before the Wenger years, that's when I started supporting Arsenal. And we've seen a lot of what has happened. I mean, we had amazing times, late 90s, early 2000s, with Arsenal being in charge. And him having us being probably the most attractive football team in England, if not the world, before Barcelona 2008. Then that moved on, and especially after the stadium move, there was a lot of concessions being made about the business we could do, the players we could sign, and that meant that we couldn't be as competitive as it were. The lowest point probably for me in the Wenger years was in 2008. In March, when we were leading the league by with 13 points and ended up losing the league.
That point you made about us having to face austerity because of this whole stadium move. Yeah. I like to just sort of look at the differences between our situation when we had the move and sorry, I can hear just a bit of background. So when we had the move, we had Arteta. When we had a move, we were told by the club we couldn't sign anyone. Therefore, we sold a lot of our main star players, like Henry, had to leave. The sales of Sami Nasri, Adebayor. Why is it Tottenham didn't face that same austerity measures? And furthermore, they've actually strengthened decently.
I guess one thing that we've got to be honest about is that it's not that we didn't sign players.
Mm-hmm.
I think we lost our way in terms of how we were signing our players. We went a lot into focusing on stats, one, and two, left so much at one man's feet whereby Arsenal was actually making all the decisions. If you think about it, we were offered Hazard and Gervinho, and we were to choose one. And who did we choose? We chose Gervinho. We made mistakes along the way, and I think that is one problem I had with Arsene in terms of he was stuck to his ways, and he was willing to go with them to the grave, and that is why we have the problem we have today. If you go to the 8-2 loss, especially, and then he goes on a spending spree to bring in about 5 players. I mean, it didn't mean that he didn't know their weaknesses. The 8-2 loss was like a magnification of those problems, and he just brings all these players in.
You know how you just mentioned that, yeah? We haven't changed our way. I was actually speaking to a fan today, and sorry, what I have to do is maybe mute you because I can hear myself on my end when I'm speaking, if that's fine. So I was speaking to a fan on Twitter today, and what I did mention to him was he was talking about how Williams a decent signing, and I told him I don't think so. I think that's such a waste because based on the season, and we've awarded him a 3-year contract. I look at, for example, I hate to mention them again, Tottenham. They signed Emil Højbjerg for £15 million, and he's on less than half the salary Williams on. So I sort of did my calculation, and I worked it out. Over the course of the 3 years, Spurs would have spent just £5 million more for a player that's come in and transformed them, whereas we've got an old has-been from Chelsea. So when people talk about I trust the process, I don't, because I haven't seen anything changed from the Wenger days, as you mentioned. So what would your response be to that, how we're still failing in terms of the market and recruitment? Go ahead.
Sure thing. My opinion is pretty much the same as yours in terms of Willian not being a good signing for us. I think that is in effect the relationship there has been between Edu and Kia, and that is of course not doing as great. But at the same time, I think one thing we must appreciate with the recruitment of Spurs is that they have the former sporting director at Lille. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but that guy is doing a great job. It's called Campos or something like that. He's doing a great job there in terms of recruitment.
Sorry, what was
that? Campos, the former sporting director at Lille, is now the sport. He has a position at Spurs, and of course, realizing how much talent he was able to bring to Lille, and now he's at Spurs. That's going to happen. However, what we're saying is, by what in my view, what the process is, what I am seeing is that we were playing the kind of football that was you're going to come at us, we're going to come at you, we'll score more than you do, and then we can see who wins. So currently, I think that was a big problem. If you remember in the Arsenal years, probably if we had our defenses fixed earlier, there's seasons in which we could have won the league. Take the Leicester season, for instance. We could have won the league if we had a better defense than we had. So where I see the process here for me is that we are more solid, not entirely, because we don't have, especially our midfield is very light. Partey has only played, I think, two and a half games, one in which he came on as a sub. So in terms of the process we are talking about is that you can see a sense of direction, a spine being formed, and if maybe in the January transfer window or in the summer window, Arteta gets the support that is required, we'll probably be in a position.
Based on what you said, I've got 2 points to make. Might start with the good point. The good thing I have seen with Arteta is, in terms of his recent recruitment in bringing in Partey and Gabriel, I haven't seen us sign a top defender like Gabriel in so long. I'm not sure whether you can recall the last top defender we had. I don't remember. He's exactly what we needed. Young, strong, fast. and he's very driven. He just wants to win the ball all the time. And Partey as well, he's changed that spine. So I like in terms of some of these personnel that Arteta is bringing. But then I question when I see likes of Marie coming in, Suarez, and then you see Willian coming in. So that's one point. And I have to say, if Mikel Arteta can maybe continue building on that spine, fantastic. But going back to the initial point you made about the progress of the defence, and I've argued with quite a few Arsenal fans recently saying we've overinflated that stats. Reason being is because Chelsea have conceded exactly the same amount of goals as we have. However, Chelsea have scored more than twice the amount of goal we have. So can you really say it's brilliant defending if you've got 5 defenders with everyone playing deep? You've even got Aubameyang practically being a left back, and you've got Pepe or Willian, whoever's on the right, they track him back as well. So how can we come out and say we've got great defensive record when we've got a minus goal difference? Remember, we've got pretty much everyone behind the ball. We've got the same goal difference as Chelsea, and have scored more than twice the amount of goals we have. What would your comeback to that be?
Certainly a comeback, but I think where I stand about that is, one, our attack is not as good as Chelsea's. I mean, if you say take individuals, so take Aubameyang, Van, go maybe Havertz, we don't have anybody to compare to that. Mount, we don't have. Kante, we actually don't have a defensive midfielder in Arsenal as we speak right now. We have a lot of box-to-box midfielders, but we don't have a single defensive midfielder, and we don't have a proper number 8, a recycler of the ball. And this is where the signing of Aouar would have been very important for us. Do I think that was the best move that we were going to make? No. But the thing is that for Chelsea, they have reinforced the team in all positions. Chelsea gone out, gotten a goalkeeper, gotten an experienced centre back, gotten 3 players in attack in Ziyech, Havertz, and Werner. And of course, for that reason, the gelling is there. If we were having this conversation at the 3rd match day, we couldn't be talking about how good the attack has been at Chelsea. They only started clicking after, and that was actually when Mendy had come in, and they haven't conceded until yesterday evening, I guess. And the same case with the attack that has been doing well after these players clicked together, Ziyech, Havertz, and the like, and even Mason Mount changing his position, is now playing pretty much alongside Kante, and so the movement is more fluid in the team.
Okay. I will give you the Chelsea. They are overall on paper a better team than us. Now, yeah. I would like to sort of, if I can, try to get my screen up here, because I want to show you West Ham's results. West Ham have had, since the fixtures they've had so far this season, they've had arguably a harder start than us, facing the likes of they faced the likes of Spurs. Remember, they came back with a 3-3 draw. They lost 2-1 to Liverpool. They lost to us as well. They got a draw with Man City. They I can't remember who else. I've got it up here, so let me show you my screen and show you the teams they've faced so far. Yeah. So if I go on their results. Apologies for this. So yeah, so my point just going on this, so a lot of people might sort of say, you know what, with the whole Chelsea thing, they've spent big. I understand, and we can't compete with that. But then what excuse do we have when we're talking about a club like West Ham? Apologies, it's not really coming up. Oh, here we go. So if we look at West Ham's results, as you can see, it's 2020. Yep. So if we look at the season started, why? Okay, so this is including everything. But sorry, it's not just West Ham. Apologies, I've messed that one up. But I tried to make a point, didn't work. But sorry, going back to the point you were making. So when we look at a club like West Ham, what excuse do we have? Because our squad's much better. Then I look at Brighton, for example. They beat Aston Villa 2-1, right? And Aston Villa, before that, they lost their other 3 games. How can we say our midfield is weak and attack when Brighton have guys like Danny Welbeck, Solly March? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Because for me, a good manager can come in towards any team and utilize what he has.
And that's where for me the challenge is really, because I feel personally that as Arsenal we've been used to success.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a lot of fans of our generation, people born in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of us haven't seen Arsenal losing much. We're used to Arsenal being in the top 4 for 20 years. We're used to Arsenal playing in the Champions League. We're used to Arsenal running teams down and all that sort of thing. But we lost our way. And that's what people don't appreciate. We lost our way about 10 years back.
I think before that, I think when we moved to the Emirates.
Exactly. And for me, even the bigger problem was the move of Stan Kroenke coming into the club. And that was, for me, that's really what broke the team, because Stan Kroenke hasn't done much for the club, really. And even David Den said it at some point, I think 2-3 years ago, and in the sense that Stan hasn't really invested in the team. He hasn't put in the right structures. He hasn't made the right calls.
David is the man that brought Stan to the club.
Exactly, of course. He is the one who brought Stan to the club. Doesn't help that he did, but the fact that he has owned up and say that there is a problem, that's good enough for me. The problem now is, where does Stan take us from here? Because even in this past season, I don't even understand the reason why we could go all out gung-ho trying to get somebody like Awa. And if I can honestly say, we could go out and get Abdullah Dekura, cheaper, Premier League ready, tested, and somebody will just come in, slot in, do the job. Go out to Norwich, get he was called Emmanuel Buendia. He created the second most chances in the league last season, only behind De Bruyne. And that's a player who could come do a job for us, and he could come on a cheap, probably £20 million, and we're good to go. So it's really been a case of one, managing our expectations on one end, and on the other end being let down by the board or the guys in the upper rooms.
So you mentioned about in the summer we should have gone out and got Thomas Aouar as well as Partey. So for me, I think absolutely we needed both to get top 4. One or the other wouldn't have worked. So how can we trust a manager that the board is telling us to trust when the board, who's a billionaire, doesn't trust them to give them both signings, which we could have got top 4? Then they would have made their Champions League money back, which is about in the sum of around 40 million. Then that would have paid off for Houssem Aouar. So for me, that means Stan Kroenke doesn't trust Arteta enough as a manager to sanction those buys. So if he doesn't trust Arteta, how can he come out and expect the fans to trust and back him? To me, that doesn't make any sense. And that's why I will never, ever trust or back any process that comes from the Kroenkes, because I have so far nothing to trust them with. And I think, personally speaking, when they use these words like trust the process, they're just buying times. You mentioned about the Thomas Partey, yeah? They were smart to sanction that on the last day. Why? Because it creates a great euphoria around the fan base. The fans forget, we needed both. And then we're just sat here celebrating, including myself. I was one of these guys on deadline day celebrating that we had Thomas Partey. But then when you stop and you think about it, you're like, damn, we got conned by the Cronkies again. And so how can I trust the process which stems from corrupted owners?
I'll put that as one. I think Mikel has been very honest with us. Of course, I've watched some of the videos on your channel in the sense that it's probably not as consistent as he says he is, especially when dealing with the players. But I think he has been consistent with the fans in telling us what to expect. And especially the other thing is for the party deal, I think they made the right move in the sense that the right business move was that if they paid money for our fast, they could then, they knew they had to pay a certain amount, X amount for party, and that was it. But if they paid for party and are going back to negotiate with the for our, that was going to be a challenge. So I think that was a business decision being made. But at the same time, as you say, we view Arsenal as the love of our lives, sort of, where we know that we are supporting Arsenal and whatever decisions we make are supposed to be best for Arsenal. Kroenke views Arsenal as one part of his portfolio.
His cash cow.
Exactly. And that portfolio is doing so well, he can't afford to have it messed up. So he's just trying to retain that position. And for me, where I see it is, even if we were to get a Mourinho, even if we were to get a Pochettino, even if we were to get a Guardiola, in fact, I believe, I go as far as believing that if Pep was given the Arsenal team, he'll probably struggle more than even Arteta is struggling.
You know what? I actually think, and just hear me out, before you judge me, just please hear me out. I think Mourinho is exactly what we need. We need someone to come in to shake things up at board level. Yes, Mourinho will cause a mess, but whilst he's there, he will stir things up. He will leak to the fans what we've all known for quite a long time. You have the likes of Wenger, who you've even seen recently, Arteta has protected them by making claims that Ozil's not playing for footballing decisions. We all know that's come from top up, So I think maybe we actually needed someone like Mourinho, someone that's going to come out and say, you know what, these guys are backing me, they don't care about this club, and therefore, it can somehow maybe bring a revolution, fans taking back the club, because I still think there's too many fans out there who are sleeping and they make so many excuses for the Cronkies. And for me, I'm so tired of them. I just wish we could just unite together like the Liverpool fans when they try to increase the ticket prices, and we can, as fans, tell the Cronkies, you know what, either invest or get out, sell the club to someone who has passion for it. And this is why I feel as if maybe I have a go at certain fans, because I feel like they're sleeping, they're being blinded by the Cronkies. And maybe, unfortunately, it seems like my attack is on Arteta, but it's just because I see him as a shield protecting the Cronkies, and that's why he's now my enemy. And that's why I feel like someone like Mourinho needed to come in, shake things up, and just say it as it is. What do you think about that?
There's some truth to what you're saying. However, I think that has been tried and failed. Mourinho tried to do that at United. And we're here. So I think it's more a case of, with this American honors, you can see, Ed Woodward is actually a banker. He knows nothing about football, but he's the running affairs at United. And Mourinho tried to push as much as he could. But then the problem has been that as long as there's no footballing direction, that is when the problems are going to continue to be. And the thing is, even with Spurs, what is happening at the moment is that Levy didn't only want to depend on himself, he actually brought in footballing minds. Or Campos is an example I gave earlier. And Mourinho himself, he has actually gone out and changed even the systems that he's trying to use. And he understood that I need physical men, and he got those in Sissoko, Oiberg, dark hearts masters like Lo Celso and Lamela, guys who are just going to throw themselves to the floor with a touch of their eye. So he has a mix of players that are going to do the job for him. But at the same time, you can be sure if Mourinho goes out in January and says, I actually want a midfielder, and Levy says, no, we have invested enough, it's going to be chaos. Okay? And Spurs fans will go with that if Mourinho is doing well at that point. Spurs have a run of about 7-8 games between now and January. Is actually going to define whether they are going to be there or thereabouts in terms of winning the league this season. And so that is what we see. But if Mourinho came to us now, I don't think they would make much of a difference, in the sense that still these are people who are pretty much bent on what they want to do. And until we get a different owner, I think our case is very similar to what is happening at Newcastle with Mike Ashley, with people just focused on, owners focused on making a profit and moving it on, not really focused on the community around the club and all that. So it's a challenge we have, but my positivity comes in this sense. We finally have a footballing mind. We have Arteta, we have Edu. He doesn't have much experience with the European game. He is very much South American and everything, and he's even trying to now sign another South American, another Brazilian player. But that is going to allow us to get first dibs on the best South American talent.
Yeah,
I'll be okay with that. That does not include Willian and David Luiz. But hopefully,
maybe 20 years ago. Maybe
exactly. Maybe we get Martinelli. Maybe we get Brenner. We just get some of these players, and as long as we just are able to move one more step, it's better than actually not moving out.
You briefly spoke about the structure, top up.
Yeah.
Now, for me, one thing that doesn't make sense is when Wenger was there towards the end of his tenure, what they tried to do was take some power off Wenger by making him more of a coach. And then they brought in the likes of Sven Mislintat, they brought in the likes of Rausinelli, Vinay, and Husfami to sort of take up other roles which Wenger had his hands in. So what they did was they had that structure. Then they, for whatever reason, they completely removed all of that structure just to go back to the same structure where you've got Wenger, like who is now Arteta, doing everything. So the difficulty you have now is because Arteta is now a manager, their board are very much backing him. He has to do so much for them to get rid of him, because the difference is with Unai Emery, he was a first team coach. You had the other personnel around him. So if you get rid of him, that's it. You still have those roles around. But if you get rid of Arteta, you've got a massive, massive hole in all these other roles. And that doesn't make any sense. Do you think that's a wise move by the club to revert back to the hierarchy system they had previously, if the whole intention to change it was to be more modern, a modern approach like a lot of these clubs out there in Germany does? Sorry, I just mute. You on mute. Sorry, speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. So I think the current structure isn't as bad as it was. Not bad in the sense that it was horrible, but because Wenger, when he was doing very well, when he came in, it literally transformed the club and everything. But in the latter years, it wasn't very good. So in essence, what I believe is that at the moment, we've probably gone to the early Wenger years, where we had Wenger and David Dane, and then the chairman Chiprix, who was now like a structure of about 3 people. So now we have Josh, and then we have Vinay, Josh, Edu, and Arteta, and then there's the academy structure, the under 23s with Parmat, Saka, and Steve Bold, and the rest of the guys down there. So I don't think it's as centralized as it was, especially in the post Emirates move era, where Wenger was everywhere. Literally, I remember one time he was saying that he speaks even to the tea ladies that are in the stadium. So I think there's a structure to it. The problem we have, and this is what I mentioned to you probably in terms of Arteta, is the inexperience. Most of these guys haven't done these jobs anywhere else.
Edu's inexperienced.
Yeah, they're doing it for the first time at Arsenal, and it's a very, very big job. You took somebody from South America who didn't have experience in European scouting, European football development, brought him in. You took Arteta, who was assistant manager to Pep Guardiola, brought him in. You took Parmat Saka immediately after retirement, made him director of the academy. So it's sort of, there's so many new people, because even Vinay was actually in marketing, is now in charge of the entire infrastructure. So it's sort of a lot of inexperience, but at the same time, if you look across Europe as well, a lot of teams are moving in that direction. A lot of places. If you look at Ajax, they're doing the same thing. They have under Sarr and the coaches that have been changing, but most of them have been doing, probably is the second gig, is the first gig for a lot of them. So it's more a case of the direction where European football is moving to. But for Arsenal, is that the expectation was very high and the job is so big, and these guys are going to take time to be actually learning on the job and deliver what the expectation is.
So you mentioned Ajax. Ajax already has an embedded philosophy in the way they play the total football brand.
Yeah.
So regardless of who the manager is, they already know the structure for recruitment. Difference in Arsenal, as you've said as well, identity has changed recently. We were more attacking, now we're looking more defensive. So you're looking at the sort of profile players Arteta and Edu are looking at. They're more sort of physical, athletic players in the mold of Partey's, in the mold of Gabriel. And even now they're looking at Dominic Szoboszlai, which he's quite a big physical player. So the downside you have is when you don't have a Sven Mislintat, is that your whole vision is on that one manager. You get rid of him, then now if a new manager comes in, he might have a different style. So that's the downside of having this sort of structure, because you're going to have to change your sort of policy of bringing in players and profile based on who's in charge at the time, because you have no vision, because that structure of a head recruiter is not there. You look at Monchi at Seville, they know exactly what they're doing. You're talking about these other Campos from Lille. They have their vision. They know what kind of players they have. They had Nicolas Pepe. As soon as they got rid of him, Victor Osimhen came in, which he's a very similar profile. So regardless of which manager comes in, they know where they want to be and where they want to go. Like Dortmund have that similar structure as well. That's the downside we have, is that because the Kroenkes, they're not footballing people. They're going to be very reliant on Edu and the likes of Mikel Arteta, despite their inexperience. Because even though they are inexperienced, they still are footballing people, unlike the Kroenkes. So that's the danger you have with this sort of setup, and that's my main concern.
I understand. I definitely understand your concern, but I think where we miss the point is that we are comparing ourselves with Dortmund today, with Ajax today, with Barcelona today.
Mm-hmm.
We are at the start of La Masia. We are at the start of the Ajax Academy. We are at the start of Klopp moving to Dortmund from Mainz. That is where we are. We are not at Klopp transforming Dortmund from a relegation-threatened team to a team challenging for the league. We are not at having Barcelona playing the best football, or just about to fly off the landing lane. We are not at Ajax getting the very best of, say, Dennis Bergkamp, Frank Rijkaard, all these guys. We are at the start of that process. The problem is, as you clearly pointed out, is that we don't have a footballing board, neither do we have experience in the football minds that are at the club. And that is going to be a challenge. However, what pleases me is that, and I just hope we can get to see more of this, maybe even from tomorrow, the youth need to be given a chance. The Aziz, the Balagans, They need to be given a chance because, like right now, Laka is not doing well. Just put in Balogun, give him 10, 15 minutes, let him play. Let's see what he can do. Put in Nelson. Willian is not doing well. Get Nelson to play. Let's see what he can do, because then that way, this is going to give the guys in the academy confidence. This is going to give an 18-year-old at Ajax, an 18-year-old playing in France somewhere, saying, I can actually go to Arsenal at 18 and actually be able to start. Saka has been that player because he was given the opportunity, took it, and he's running with it. And that's why I think even for Martinelli, he could be able to come in and say, I want to go to Arsenal because I know I can do that. Gabriel said the same thing, that I know this club gives opportunities to young players. And so it's the case of us now establishing all the structures, and that is going to be a long and painful thing. I was just researching about Barcelona, before the Pep years, even before the 2006 final. Barcelona had won only, I think, 4 trophies in about 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. And then that just exploded, poop. And they went from 30 trophies in 8 years, and that's what it takes.
So that was leading on to the next point, the youth. From what I've seen so far, it seems like Arteta's reluctant to use the youth, especially against these sort of cup competitions. I've not seen the likes of, for me, I'm not the biggest fan of Eddie Nketiah. That's quite obvious. I think Balogun deserves that opportunity. I think Eddie Nketiah is just a fox in a box. He can't do nothing. There's a reason why, for example, it's so embarrassing when Sheffield United are knocking on the door at Liverpool and asking for Ryan Brewster for 25 million, but nobody's interested in Eddie Nketiah. That says a lot, and he, despite all these goals he's scoring for England under 23. But it seems like only Eddie and Saka have really improved under Arteta, whereas when I look at the other youth, they don't seem to get any game time. He's very reluctant as well. For example, just throwing Saliba into the first team when the kid was a main starter at Saint Etienne. He was playing against the likes of Monaco, PSG, the likes of Lyon as well when they beat him. So it's just a few players. Willock played amazingly in Europa League. The game against Aston Villa, nowhere near the squad. And it's like Ben Cottrell looking very impressive in the under 23s. He flew out yesterday with the squad. Be interesting to see if he plays. But what's been your take on Mikel Arteta's timid approach for trusting the youth and playing them? And do you think that the youth are in serious danger in terms of their development under Mikel Arteta?
Of course, there's concern in the sense that initially when he came in, Willock was getting a lot of game time. People forget that some of these players are very young. Maitland Niles is very young as well. He's 22. And all of these players are actually 23 now this year. So a lot of these players were getting a lot of game time early on, and especially during Emery's final days. But at the same time, I think where the challenge is for him being timid is that he needs results now. And because of that, he doesn't want to be in a position where he plays inexperience.
Yeah.
And then gets into trouble with that. And
Rapid Vienna, Mulder, can't we seriously experiment in these games?
I think if and that's why you probably saw the youth who traveled with the team yesterday. Those are probably going to play in this game because I think our qualification is now assured into the next round. I think the thing here is trying, and you probably saw the frustration even Mourinho had when they lost to, was it, I don't know, I can't remember the team they lost to.
It was Antwerp.
Yeah, Antwerp. So he had that frustration because his expectation was before the 7-match run that he has now of City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Wolverhampton, etc. he didn't want to have players like Ken, Son, Bale having to concentrate on those games. He wanted to rest all of them and have that. And so probably Arteta was thinking about the same thing. We want to get this done and dusted as fast as possible. That in the final 2 games, we can actually give these kids a chance to play. That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And then at the same time as well, when you think about it, is that clearly we don't have a chance of winning the Premier League. That's a given. So you're gonna try and get into these cup competitions and try go as far as you can, if possible. Win one of them, because I mean, if we didn't win the FA Cup, we couldn't be in Europe today.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I don't like Unai Emery, and one of the first things I usually get from Arsenal fans who are pro Arteta, they usually throw digs at Unai Emery like I care, and I'm like, I never supported him anyway. So why are you telling me Unai Emery's crap? I don't care. Yes, I know this, but one thing I do like about Unai Emery was his faith in the youth. Saka's breakout season is due to Unai Emery. Martinelli coming in, Unai Emery, the likes of Willock, Nelson played regularly in cup games. And for me, I wish Arteta could just do that, because for me, it's very important for any manager to look at the future. We talk about non-stop about poor recruitment. But when we have these talented youth, when you have the likes of Balogun coming in, Miguel Aziz, there's Pinto, who they speak very highly of within our academy. There's Ben Cottrell, and I keep saying he's been playing brilliantly if you watch him. I was disappointed as well that we let Bowler on loan, our left back, because for me, Said Kolasinac, he's off, and it makes me so angry when I see the likes of Mustafi, not Socrates, apologies, David Luiz, and all these players who aren't going to be here in June, playing ahead of William Saliba. And you think to yourself, why did we spend 27 million, loan him out, back to St Etienne, where whilst he was injured, he came back to London Colony, so we had a few times to assess him, only then to make the decision the last day of the transfer deadline day, you know what, let's loan him out, he's not ready yet. Why did it take you that long to come to that decision? This is for me, this is why I don't trust the process. Just so many questions. How can I trust the process that there's more questions than answers? When I look at the youth, it's one of my biggest angers towards Mikel Arteta and the treatment of some of these young players.
I definitely understand that frustration, but I think the other thing that I'm really careful to not ignore here is that say Saliba didn't have much of, because he actually played half the season last season at St Etienne. Was out.
So was Gabriel.
He was injured for half of it, but Gabriel actually played in the later season because Saliba was injured in the second part of the season, while Gabriel was injured in the initial part of the season.
Fair.
And then, of course, he lost his mom in June. So
in saying that, I think that's a poor excuse, because in July, St Etienne faced PSG in a cup final, and he requested to extend his loan to go play in that final. So if he's mentally prepared to play a cup final, St Etienne haven't participated in many years, he's not ready for Dundalk. He's not ready for Rapid Vienna.
Definitely, he is ready for that, and that I give it to you. I mean, Arteta made a mistake with that, and of course, the inexperience. That's where the inexperience comes in, because you clearly see if Mustafi is not going to be around next season, clearly, you rather give the player you're going to have next season more chances, so that is actually more in sync with the rest of the team, is playing to the systems that you want them to be playing, and etc. So, and that is where the inexperienced bit is going to be a challenge here.
And another thing that we signed him on a 5-year contract. Last year he was loaned out. This year he's not playing. So we basically signed him for 27 million for 3 years worth.
Exactly, and that's and this is what I was talking about. Like, I don't know if I mentioned to you, like, We struggled to move, what was his name? Carl Jenkinson.
Yeah.
Crystal Palace were willing to sign him, but he was on £40,000 a week. You know, how does Carl Jenkinson be on £40,000 a week? It doesn't make sense. I think before Kieran Gibbs went to West Bromwich Albion, in the space of a month, we rejected the deal for 10 million. A month later, we sold him for 8 million. It's just mind-boggling. You just don't understand what people are doing, really, because it's just a mess, and that mess hasn't ended yet. That mess is probably going to take us more years to end, because we still have Mustafi around. Kolasinac couldn't move to Leverkusen because of his wages. Exactly, he's on high wages. Socrates comes in, he's on 90,000 a week. You know, it just doesn't make sense. And you see, what really has helped Tottenham even in this past summer transfer window is that a lot of players. Son is on less than 80, I think. He's on somewhere around £72 a week, £72,000 a week. Kane is the highest earning, and you can clearly see it's a performance awarding system, and ours was a very socialist system.
Exactly.
And until now, I think if that doesn't change, we're going to have a very big challenge. I thank God Luis leaves at the end of the season. Mustafi, Socrates, Kolasinac, all these players start leaving, and then we can now start working on guys who are actually going to come in and be awarded for their performance. I talk of Jack Wilshere coming back in. I don't want to hear nonsense as though if he's going to come back in, give him 10,000, and that is if he plays. If he doesn't, nothing.
Yeah. Well, we've been speaking for just over 46 minutes now. So just to sort of wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
So for you, when will it come to a point for you when you say to yourself, you know what, I have no faith in Arteta no more.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be sounding a lot like last word Gooner here and be critical. At what point for you do you say done? Because with me, if I'm honest with you, I'm caught in a bit of a dilemma, because as I mentioned, due to our hierarchy structure and our incompetent board, I think to myself, even if we get rid of Mikel, these idiots don't know what to do anyway. But then when I look at Mikel, just in-game stuff, like not trusting the players, the man management, the youth issue, and even not getting the right balance between defense and attack, because you look at lesser teams like West Ham, Brighton, they're doing it. Why can't we? So stuff like that makes me think, actually, no, he's not the right man. So, but I'm still kind of borderline. Yeah, I think for me, it will be the defeat to Tottenham. If we get a heavy defeat to them, I'm done. You're going to see me here with a massive poster Arteta around. So for you, same question goes to you. At what point do you start saying, I'm done, I don't believe in this process no more?
I think personally, I would say we have an opportunity in the January transfer window. He has, because up until January, he doesn't have much he can do with the squad in terms of changing things up. Getting Saliba in probably into the Europa squad and Ozil back in. I think we need Ozil at this point, even if we're going to go ahead and sign Blase, the Hungarian guy. Sobaslai. So even if we were going to sign him, I still think Ozil just needs to come into the squad. We need to drop Mustafi, I feel, get Saliba back in, probably have the same thing apply to Kolasinac, and probably get the left back from loan, and just have these players we know we are going to have in next season, so that we start planning, because I feel Arsenal should already be planning for next season. And in the January transfer window, if he doesn't make those changes, in addition to the club not supporting him, it's more or less a point of it's not about me trusting Arteta. It's actually about me stepping back from the club, sort of like not investing myself as much as I do, because I actually watch every single game that we play. I follow sort of everything really, but if that's going to be the case, I'm going to have to step back and leave it as it is. Hopefully somebody comes along, buys from Kroenke, and because I really think the point at which things are going to change completely is when Kroenke leaves.
Agreed.
Because even with Arteta around, in as much as he's trying to do this, because I'm imagining if Arteta had gone to Chelsea and say Chelsea was Arsenal, or Abramovich owned Arsenal rather, and Arteta comes in and says, "This is what we need." I'm imagining Abramovich will just go out, give the money, get these players in. We'll probably have we'll probably have another striker. Like I said, could be gone. We could probably have another defender, and probably more experienced, a Canute, or even the guy from Napoli who was supposed to go to City, Koulibaly. So we could have all these players, and things could be all different. The problem is we have an ownership that is penny pinching left, right, and center. We have a system that has been broken for so many years, and we're actually trying to clean the entire mess in one single season. I don't think that's possible. I don't think it's going to be easy. And the reason why I keep referencing Klopp is that the ownership and Klopp himself understood that it was going to take time, and the fans had the patience to see that. Ours is a job of now understanding the reality of where Arsenal is. We have been a top 4 club, but today, if we're being honest, me and you, man to man, we can say this: Arsenal does not qualify, does not have a squad to compete to be in the top 5, to be even in the top 7 teams in the league as it is today. So, if we know that, we've also got to be honest to see what the coach is trying to do with a very limited squad, because it is very limited.
You made a fantastic point there about the whole Klopp and comparison, because I hear quite often by Arsenal fans, slow down, Liverpool fans trust in Klopp. Difference is, Liverpool have a board which trusts Klopp. We don't have a board that trusts Arteta. So you can't trust the process when these two don't trust each other. Yeah? Difference in Liverpool, they backed Klopp regardless. They were very patient with him. So I always tell Arsenal fans, please don't use the same comparison. Klopp was an experienced manager who won things and had backing by his board. Arteta's inexperienced, who has no backing by his board. 2 different situations. You can't compare them. So, any further comments before we end this stream, Caleb?
Thanks for having me, of course. It's been great having a chat with you. Hopefully, we can get to talk more later, maybe here, maybe on Twitter or any other place. I mean, when you come to Kenya, definitely we'll meet up for something, maybe a beer or Nyamachoma or something like that.
Nyamachoma, definitely.
And let's hope the process that we are trying to trust is going to work. I mean, it's been long since we actually had a great feeling about Arsenal. Yes, we are going to have this short surges in the joy in terms of, say, winning in the heat of the moment. Winning the FA Cup is great. Beating United at Old Trafford is great. But in the bigger picture, we're not doing great, and we really need to soon enough. We are probably the club with the biggest fan base in the world. I mean, we deserve better than we are getting right now.
Completely agree. Thank you so much for everyone that's joined into this interesting conversation we've had over Arteta. You've been a very great host. I'm hoping maybe, as you mentioned, in future, we could do more similar things, bring in other guests. likewise, if there's anyone out there and you want to come on, or if you have any questions for myself or Caleb, I will leave his Twitter on the description below. So feel free to add him, follow him, and I'll leave my description below as well. Follow me. Any questions? Thank you so much. Being a great host. Take care.
We win tomorrow with the boys.